Alright, everybody, hello and welcome back to The Creator's Conscience. It's a new year and I feel slightly better about myself. Not really, because the Tories have still fucking won. Fuck those guys. Anyway, we are kicking it off with a really fun guest. We've been talking for about, say, 6 months or so now, and you've told me all about. Now, you guys know I'm not a sports fan, but I feel like that's changing right now because I could see this story going up with the likes of the Karate Kid and a lot of my faves like that. So, please welcome to the show, Shane Reid. How you doing, buddy?
Hello, I'm doing good, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to your show. Thank you.
If anything, you get on the show alone by that accent.
Is the what? Sorry.
By the accent, that's how you get on the show alone. Like that's I do like the Scouse accent quite a lot.
Yeah, God, no. It's terrible when you live here and you hear it all the time.
Yeah, well, I'm Scottish and I don't sound a thing Scottish, so.
You know, and it's like Scottish and then you sound American sometimes. And
it's
good.
You know what? I'm blaming all the authors I've interviewed. Yeah, I'm blaming AJ, I'm blaming Alice, I'm blaming Mason. You guys gave me your accent. Fucking hell. Alright, so let's get right into this. So you gave me your book Offside Life a couple months ago, and I just finished reading it because fucking job hunting took up a lot of my time, but I'm really glad I finished it because this story's fucking great, and I've noticed that a lot of your stories tend to have sport as a background, so I guess we can start off with that. Was that always your kind of influence to make like sort of sports coming of age stories?
It wasn't my like initial vision. I've always been like into sports. I used to play sports when I was younger. I always wanted to like write them, but didn't think I had the enough experience to. And then July was when I started drafting it. I did it for Camp NaNoWriMo. I was just like, oh, what the hell? I'm gonna do it. And then it just started coming together, and I was like, actually, you know what? This is working.
Wait, you wrote all this in July?
Yeah, I did 50,000 words in Camp Nano.
So what you gave me was a first draft?
Yeah.
Holy shit, for a first draft, it's fucking good.
Thank you.
I mean, we all know that rule that usually first drafts suck, but not in this case.
Oh my god, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm actually working on some edits for it now. I did 50,000 words. I think I hit the mark on the 27th of the month, and then just carried on writing after that. And then I think the first draft ended up being about 70,000 words.
It is YA, I suppose. That's kind of low for YA, but that seems high for me because I write middle grade.
Yeah, I always do low word counts at the start, and then usually in edits they bump up a little bit.
So, did you have a lot of influence from like classic was there any like coming of age stories that you loved when you were younger? Like, I know we've talked about Bend It Like Beckham and the John Hughes stuff and things like that. Did that come into it at all?
I hadn't actually seen Bend It Like Beckham before I wrote it, but I watched that film recently and it was so good. One of my biggest influences though was All for the Game, which I talk about endlessly on Twitter. I think that kind of gave me the kind of motivation I needed to start writing a sports book, to think, okay, wow, sports can actually be a really big part. But I'd also read Wing Jones by Catherine Webber, which is centered around track and running, which I absolutely adored. I absolutely love that book. I'm obsessed. So yeah, there was just like several influences, and then I was like, you know what, I'm gonna write my book centered around sports. I'm gonna finally do it.
Yeah, the funny thing is, the first thing I started writing on was sort of a sportsy kind of thing. It was about parkour kids, but but one of them got superpowers, and then there was like an ethic debate on, do I use my powers in this tournament or do I be a superhero? And
That's amazing.
But I'll let you know a little secret. That book fucking sucks. I'm probably not releasing that anytime soon. It is so angsty and edgy that it's embarrassing.
That sounds amazing. That sounds like it's my dream.
Oh god, literally, it's from like a time in my life where I thought being an edgelord was funny. It's got all the sense of humor of a 4chan forum.
I love that.
I will not release that at all.
Not at all.
Nah, but I don't have much of a background in sports. The only sport I ever did when I was younger that I enjoyed was skateboarding. When I joined the rugby team, I was used as a tackling dummy. So you can imagine what kind of childhood I had. But for that to be the facts, and for me to still enjoy this story, it feels like one of those sort of healthy medium coming of age sports stories. Like, I mentioned like the Karate Kid and like maybe things like Rush, or I don't know, what were those Disney Channel original movies where they all did weird sports? There was one about skipping. I can't remember the name of it.
Oh, I know which one you mean.
It's got the
Called Blue again, didn't it? And
yes, because I fancied him in high school.
Same.
He is a very attractive man.
Lucas Gabriel's, yeah.
Yeah. I only just realized Lucas Grabeel was he was Superboy on Smallville.
Oh, I did not know that. I didn't know that.
I think he was also young Lex Luthor, which is kind of fun.
Wow, that's good. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's got a superhero's face. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see it. Once you get past like the initial, he has to be Ryan Evans dancing on a stage wearing really cool hats.
I mean, I can quote all the High School Musical movies like backwards. So
I was raised on those films, honestly.
I say they're like our generation's Grease. Like everyone goes on about
Yes.
Grease.
Yeah, definitely.
Except there's no creepy John Travolta in it. Ugh. I like Grease, but John Travolta gives me the creeps.
Yeah.
It might have something to do with the Scientology thing, but yeah. But God, what was my original point? But like, I kind of love those stories that kind of, even if you're not into the sort of sport that's being talked about, it still creates this really interesting character dynamic. Like, one that recently comes to mind that did that for me was the movie Rush with Chris Hemsworth a couple years ago. It's all about F1 racing, but it's mostly about his rivalry with another driver.
Yeah.
Whereas this, I never thought I could read something that kind of spoke to the exact kind of anxiety I had as a kid, even though I wasn't a sporty kid. But from what I get from Clark Tinson, your main protagonist, his struggles kind of like being afraid to fall in love, and I don't see a lot of stories that do that. So was that something like personal from you, or just like a sort of new twist you wanted to put on the whole genre?
That was that was quite a personal trait about him that I wanted to run. I always knew that when I first started imagining Clark. He was in my head. He was like this guy who has like such big ambition. He knows who he could be in life. He just can't get there, and he's got mental barriers, he's got physical barriers, and of course he's always had this teaching that the minute he steps on the court, the minute the court becomes his life, there can be nothing else. So he was always taught to feel love and attraction to other people, and so when he meets Dorian, like in the year before the story starts, he's just like, oh, hello, like who are you? What are you doing to my brain? Why is my heart doing this? Because he still feels things, but he also, there's that massive element of the fear. So yeah, that was a very personal trait to run with, which is quite hard to write sometimes. Got very emotional, but yeah, it was something I really saw for him.
Yeah, trust me, I know all about your books making you emotional, and you'll see once you eventually get to Moonflower. That is pretty much my entire childhood as a story.
Oh God, I'm sorry.
I can confirm I did not bring my favorite fictional character to life, and she did not try to kill me, but some of the other stuff in there is pretty common. But no, I do love when authors can sort of put their own personal touch on a story, because when you, especially in a genre like YA coming of age, which is so saturated right now. I mean, you got your likes of John Green and all those other authors. It can be hard to put a really personal spin on it, but that's what I feel most authors can be doing, and that's another reason why I view like LGBTQ rep and person of color rep in these stories as being a great thing, because they will always put a unique twist on a genre, and therefore it does freshen it up rather than it just being the same old thing. So
definitely.
I suppose that's something you're going for as well. I mean, I've talked with Adiba about that, I've talked with Farida about that, Mason about that.
Yeah.
they're all putting their own spins on these kind of familiar stories, and that's what's freshening them up. Because I've said this a lot on the show. I'm sick of the idea that there are no more original stories. There are original stories. It's just got to be fresh perspectives.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's like it's probably kind of cringe to say, but I've always carried that thing with me. You know, you write the books you want to read, or you write the books you never got to read as a kid. And this, it might sound funny to say, but this is a book that I probably could have done with when I was like 15, 16. The whole concept of the book is very personal to me. I drew on some kind of like life event to that, and it was just something that I feel like I would have needed when I was younger, and then it just formed a story in me, and I was like, this needs to be the way it's written and the characters, and it needs to be something that can help other people and other people can read. So definitely the LGBTQ plus rep is always a massive thing when I'm writing, because I never got to read about people like me in books, so I'll write about them.
It also helps for people like me who knew fuck all about netball, because I feel like the first couple of chapters I felt almost like I was reading a how to play netball guide, but in a really fun way.
Yeah.
Like all these new terms are floating out, like what's this? Okay, I'm gonna watch a YouTube video about this because I need to understand how it works. And then, once you get past that, it's also a really personal story about like wanting to feel like you deserve love, and that's probably the part that really got to me. Like when I was sending you all those messages while I was reading it, like I really relate to Clark in this. That proves that you've done your job as a writer. If you can get me to relate to it, I'm sure there's loads of other people who could relate to it.
Well, that was like the massive thing. It's about the netball as well. I had another beta reader actually message me asking if I'd made netball up, and I was like, no, it's it's very popular in the UK. You can Google it. It's right there. But I'm familiar with netball. I was captain of my team when I was younger. So not quite Clark status, but I was more of a Reese, I'd say. I was captain and I was quite a good centre. Just saying. But no, like with the whole Clark deserving of love, that was very important to me, because he's got the fan family, the team love, the love from separate entities of his mum, and then his like horrible dad, and then he's got the love from Dorian, and then a different angle from Jane. Like there's so much love in that story that he doesn't think he deserves, and he does.
Yeah, between you and Mason, I've read a lot of LGBT stories about shitty dads, which is going to be funny when you eventually get to Moonflower, because she has a really good relationship with her dad. It's her mother she doesn't have a good relationship with. Yeah, but personal experience and all that. But I do want to get onto something that I'm not sure if you're like this, but I know me and you have a lot of the same interests. Are you into like sort of indie movies and stuff like that? Because this has got the vibe of that. This is something I could see like I don't know, what's a movie I saw recently that's kind of like it, like kind of like that movie Booksmart. It has that kind of vibe.
Oh yes, I like that film. Yeah.
Literally, for anyone who's not read this, like, I'm trying to remain as spoiler free as possible, but this is essentially like one of those indie coming of age stories that you would see at some film festival. It's not quite in the mainstream like a John Hughes thing where it's like for everybody, or like a Love, Simon. This is definitely more in the indie realm because of the sort of themes and the maturity stuff it deals with. I mean, John Hughes movies still did that, but like only maybe Breakfast Club. They became kind of silly afterwards. But this has got like the right mix of sort of fun, silly banter with friends, and it deals with a mature theme in a really interesting and unique way that I never expected. And I hope you get a fucking agent for this, because I'm going to buy like 10 copies. I'm going to start up my own film studio, and I'm going to greenlight it. We'll get like fucking... I don't know, who's the modern day John Hughes? It doesn't really exist. Whoever it is, we'll get them to direct it. Like,
I would love that. I would love that. As like I said before, I studied film and TV production in college, so I do tend to love the kind of indie movie scene. So that would be.
Are you pretentious like I am about indie movies? Like, you'll come to a film night being like, who wants to watch The Witch? Who wants to watch The Lighthouse?
Yeah.
I did that at a film night recently. It was a strange night watching Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe yell at each other in sea shanties.
I don't think I've seen that, but that's just I think that's just inspired me to go watch it.
Oh, it's quite new, but like I've been on a Robert Pattinson binge ever since he got cast as Batman. So.
Oh, I love him. I love him as an actor anyway. I was Team Edward all the way back in the day.
And what do vampires turn into? Bats. There you go. He's become full circle.
You sparkle? Doesn't love money sparkles?
I swear to God, if he has a glittery Batman suit, that would be hilarious.
Oh my God, imagine.
I'm quite surprised they didn't. Well, actually, no. I can see why they didn't cast Kristen Stewart in it because they have some weird history. I don't know. I don't follow celebrity gossip.
Yeah, they do. I believe it all got super mixed up.
Yeah, it's very strange. So since I'm trying to stay as spoiler free away from it, is there anything about Offside Life, like if imagine you're pitching it to me, even though I've read it, like how would you describe this book to somebody who would want to read it? Like, I don't know. Why am I asking for a fucking query letter? Jesus.
No, I've actually done like pitch events recently, so it shouldn't be as difficult. But okay, so short pitch description for people who haven't read it because it's not out yet. I don't have an agent yet. I would say trans athlete is trying to get his life back on track, and he seems just that little bit further there, and he's in recruitment season. He's on his way to go into a top sports university when several things kind of tilt his world a little bit off kilter. He starts developing proper feelings for this other boy on his team. He then realizes there's a new girl on the court who he likes, which is new. And on top of that, he is failing his classes, and his abusive dad, who is no longer on the scene, kind of comes back onto the scene. And everything just kind of topples him at once, like I said, during this really important recruitment season. And to top it all off, his team gets split from being their quite legendary co-ed dynamic into separate boys and girls.
There you go. If that hasn't sold you, I don't know what will.
I'm terrible at verbally describing my books. I'm just like, here you go, read it.
It's gotten to the point now with pitching for me that like I've been writing this thing for so fucking long that I'm getting tired of pitching it.
Yeah.
So because it felt unique and fresh at the start, but now I'm like, yeah, little nerdy girl brings her favorite character to life and she's evil. Yeah, check it out if it comes out.
I definitely am checking it out. I have it in my possession.
I am so I am feeling for the emotions you're gonna feel reading that.
Oh my
like
God.
it is. It may be middle grade, but it gets fucking scary at some points.
I'm a very emotionally sensitive, so I just know it's just gonna blow my emotions away. My emotional stability will be nothing. I just know it. I just know it.
No, speaking of which, that's not the only book you've written, isn't it? Because I've seen you pitching other stuff that I haven't read yet. Something where you compared it to that show, The Politician, which was like the weirdest show I've ever seen. Literally, no one in that show talks like a normal human. It's kind of hilarious.
I kind of pitched that book as like Red, White, and Royal Blue meets The Politician. That's more like new adulty, if that's even a thing in the market now. I don't know, but yeah, that's all about two boys with the boyfriends, and one of them is the mayor's son, and so he should be political to fall in line with his family name, except he just kind of wants to be on the stage. He wants to go and play the gay character in a musical, which he does. It's not a spoiler. Instead, his boyfriend kind of takes over in this political campaign run to be student representative in a university.
Oh dear, I can see this going south real fast.
Oh, it does. No, it does. It gets mad.
Well, if it's anything like that show, it's gonna get fucking wild. Like, I am still trying to understand that show. Like,
yeah, I adored that show. I binged it from like 11 p.m. to like 6 a.m. the next morning, just fully consumed and obsessed.
wait, it's a Ryan Murphy thing, isn't it?
It is.
That explains the weird dialogue.
Background.
So do I. I grew up watching Glee. I've seen some of American Horror Story and some of the other stuff he's done.
Yeah.
But like, the politician was like so fucking weird for me.
It was. It was like that meme where like you just like throw knives at a spinning wheel and be like, "What shall I write about today?"
Literally, some of the way they talk, like it's almost like when kids do a play about fucking Abraham Lincoln, the way they speak and shit.
Yeah. I turn it and be like, the dialogue was like they take the make out of how Ryan Murphy usually does dialogue. I feel like that's how it was written.
Well, maybe we can get Ryan Murphy on adapting one of your stories then. He'll Ryan Murphy it up.
As much as I love his shows, God, no problem. But no.
He's probably going to be too busy with his Netflix deal anyway.
Yeah.
God. See, I told you these shows go off the rails.
It's great. It's wonderful.
Alright, but I suppose we can get into more stuff regarding like your background and that, because we haven't really spoken a lot on the sort of trans rep and that. Is that something like you want to, you're going to have in like every story you write, or is it just going to be like maybe in a few things?
As it stands, I only started writing my trans characters last year. I've been writing for a long time now. But last year was the kind of year when I finally let myself just write what I needed to write, what I wanted to write. And ever since, I've worked on 3 bigger manuscripts, including this one, Offside Life. And it's just happened because I wanted to write some stories where it was about being trans and coming out and transitioning and having that experience, but then I wanted to write characters like that where they're just living a general life and the main conflict isn't about their gender identity or sexuality.
Yeah.
It was initially going to be Offside Life. That was initially going to be the conflict. But then I thought, no, there's different routes I can take here.
I'm kind of glad you took those different routes, because I feel like when you pitch like a trans-led story to, I can't believe I'm saying this, to the fucking hashtag straight people, they immediately assume what kind of story it's going to be, and this, while it does have those trans struggles, it just feels like a sort of regular coming of age story. Just
a trans guy living his trans life.
Pretty much. Those are the kind of stories that I do want to see more of, but once again, if you're a trans writer out there and that's the kind of story you want to tell, I'm not going to tell you how to write your own fucking experience. Do it however you wish.
Yeah. Well, on the same kind of vein, it is mentioned in the book because there's a significant height difference, which I know gets the case every time between Clark and Dorian. You know, Dorian's like 6 foot, and then you've got like Clark, who's like 5'4" or 5. Can't remember which one I made him.
Are you also tiny in real life?
I am 5'4". Yes.
Oh, how could I have guessed?
Maybe this book is just an entire self-insert.
Hey, most books are that. It's as long as it's to me, as long as it's not like, oh, here's a self-insert where I am amazing at everything, then it's fine.
God, no, that's definitely not me. I can never do that.
I don't have the confidence to do that.
I made Clark quite resembling me in that kind of sense, because I felt like it was quite important to put a trans guy in the dynamic of sports, because it deals with the height dysphoria where he's still at his kind of physical peak, and he's, you know, it's mentioned in the book that he is strong, he works out, he builds up the kind of body that he wants, he can keep up with all like the other cis men on the team. And I felt like that was quite important because I've never read about a trans athlete. I don't even know if I could name any. So I was like, you know what, this is important. This is important to me.
I'm sure there's a tennis player somewhere, but I can't think of the name. But once again, I don't follow sports.
I do love a bit of tennis. I was tweeting about tennis yesterday.
Are you posh? Are you posh?
Oh god, no.
Are you like going to Wimbledon with fucking strawberries and cream?
I would go to Wimbledon given the chance, but I am like the other end of the UK. I'm like the northwest, so
Ugh.
we're like the non-posh bit. We're like the least posh. We're Scousers. We're dirty Scousers.
We just have Andy Murray, and he's only ever Scottish when he loses. He's British when he wins, and he's Scottish when he loses. Oh, Jesus Christ! I did not think we were going to be roasting sports stars today, but there we are. That's that's good that you had that kind of perspective going into the sports thing, because I do see a lot of, because I don't follow sports, I've never really understood it, but I do see a lot of this sort of debate around like trans athletes and everything. So I'm glad there's a story that's addressing it.
Yeah, that was very important to me, and I think there's a lot of don't know if stigma is the right word, but there's a lot of stigma around trans boys, like, oh, soft, tiny, little boys, if you like. I've never used that term in my life, but it seems necessary now to say ooh. But so I wanted to kind of like fight back with that and be like, actually, this guy is soft, but he could also probably kick your ass on a court. Watch out.
Yeah, he's Spider-Man. He's a soft boy, but he's gonna kick all the villains' asses.
Yeah. Looks like a cinnamon roll, but could actually kill you.
Oh,
he's also wing attack on the court, so he's good at knowing where to go in places.
And he loves bulking up on waffles. That was a really interesting scene.
I loved writing that scene. Yeah.
And I remember there was another food thing in it that kind of threw me off. Like, can you remind me what was the thing his mum made?
Oh, cheese supreme. Okay, that's actually a dish I make regularly.
I had a feeling it was a personal home dish, because I was reading it. I was like, I have no idea what this is.
So me and my granddad came up with this. Basically, just for a bit of context for the interview. There's a scene where Dorian goes to Clark's house for dinner one time, and when they get in, his mom was already making a meal called cheese supreme. Right? I made this with my granddad about 2 years ago. Okay. God, this is just nuts. So it's
welcome to MasterChef, everybody.
It's spaghetti pasta with noodles as well. You just like boil them all together. You toss them in a frying pan. You add like green peppers, mushrooms, hot dogs, chicken, literally anything. And then you put some cheese sauce on. You put that in the frying pan, and then you put the whole thing in the oven, and you just put more cheese on. And it's looking good, cheese supreme everywhere. It's just like carbs on cheese. It's disgusting, but it's wonderful.
It sounds like it'd be a good hangover cure. Which I would not know because I don't drink alcohol.
It's quite. You have to have a strong stomach for it.
Did you just go into the kitchen one day and like fuck it, like throw all this in?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
Bit of fucking caviar in there. Why not?
Yeah, me and my granddad call it a concoction. That's how bizarre it is. When I seen it's like, should we make our concoction then today? And I'm like, yes, granddad.
Yeah, so I figured that was a personal thing, and you know how like butterbeer became like a full-on recipe? Is that gonna become a full-on thing, like on fictional food?
God, I hope so, and then I'm gonna get like so many healthcare receipts. Be like, you killed my stomach.
I might go back and read it again just so I can find the recipe for it. Feed it to my fucking brother.
I think we put wedges in it at one point as well.
But potato wedges in it?
Yeah, like just sprinkled them on the top.
Jesus Christ.
I was glad I did not have college the next day, the first time we made that dish.
Oh, so when are you opening your restaurant? Oh, jeez. Okay. All right. But since I haven't read some of your other stories, could you tell me a bit about those? Because I saw like on your covers and stuff, you made up a new sport for one of them, apparently.
No. At the moment, Offside Life is the only sports one I've written. I would love to write more. I'm planning it. The next one I'm thinking is going to be centered around like track and boxing.
Oh, sweet. So like Creed or like Rocky kind of.
Yeah, I was I don't know if you've ever seen it, but Southpaw, I was a massive fan of that as well. I also love the Rocky films.
Southpaw's the one with Jake Gyllenhaal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, when Mysterio got jacked.
Yeah. I love that film. I love the kind of angst and power behind boxing, so I'm thinking of working that into a story.
That sounds pretty fun. Yeah, I do like boxing stories. Creed was one of my favorite movies of the last couple of years.
I haven't watched that yet.
Oh, it's worth it for Michael B. Jordan. He's fucking great.
Yeah. I like him. I like him as an actor. I've seen him in a couple of things. So I think I just need to check it out somewhere, find it.
Yeah, and he might become Superman. Who knows?
Yeah.
I'm into that. Okay, so going on from this, what I always like to ask authors is like, what are their goals mainly as an author? Like for me, it's to create middle grade stories that I've never seen before, that have really unique villains and fun heroes and that, and eventually maybe turn them into movies so it kind of resembles the sort of Amblin Entertainment Spielberg era, like E.T. and Back to the Future and Goonies and that. But I want to do that for LGBT kids, because those were the kind of movies I watched as a kid. Is there anything similar for you? Like, do you want to create, like, why am I saying this? The Shane Reid sports coming of age literary universe?
That would be awesome. That would be absolutely epic. I would love that. And when they do and they cast Dorian, just let me know. Another Clark self-interest. No, I'd say one of my biggest goals I've had this few years is to obviously get books out there that people can relate to and they feel represented by. And this is like my main thing. I love art. I love looking at art. I've got like so much art pinned up in my bedroom. So for people to read my books and visualize my characters and love them that much that they want to draw them, like just like loads and loads of fan art, I would absolutely die for that.
Calling all artists, fan art submissions are being accepted right now.
Honestly, like that is my biggest dream. Just to build myself a shrine of fan art of characters. That sounds really narcissistic to say, but I would.
I'm sure there's much weirder things authors have done than that.
Oh god, yeah, probably.
Like, I'm pretty sure one of them lives in a fucking castle. I've no idea who. It might be Neil Gaiman, but I doubt it. No, wait, no, that's Tim Burton. Tim Burton's the one who lives in a fucking castle.
Tim Burton lives in I did not know that.
I saw him being interviewed for a documentary at his house, and it looks like a fucking gothic mansion.
Oh my god, that's awesome. That's wild.
God, but that's a really cool goal to have, and I reckon. Have you had much luck with literary agents? Because I remember when we first met, I think you were in talks with one, weren't you?
Yeah, I've had a full request for Offside Life. That's still pending.
I know what that feels like.
With this book, it's very, very hard to find an agent who wants a sports story, especially one that combines all the different themes. So I'm kind of leaving Offside Life to pitch events.
Fair enough.
So the agent kind of approaches you then, because I feel like that's the best way to get interest on it.
Definitely. I mean, those pitch events have got a lot of authors their deals.
Yeah.
I think I was. You know who Farida is, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I was there when she got her pitch for her book deal, and like that was when I started pitching as well. So I mean, it happens for a lot of us.
It does. It does. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the same thing happened to AJ as well a couple weeks ago.
I thought that.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome for him. Like.
Also, like the same kind of way that yours got me into sports. I've never been a dystopia fan, but his perspective on dystopia was so fucking interesting that I'm like, I want more of this.
Oh, I'm like, I emoji at his book all the time now. I'm just like, I want to see. I want to read, please.
I would just ask him. I mean, he happily gave it to me, and I read it in like, I don't know how long. I don't know how long it took me to finish it, but it was really fucking cool.
Well, especially since you tagged us in that tweet about adopting our characters the other day.
Oh yeah, exactly. They're all gonna be friends, but they have to make sure Millie's in bed at her right time.
Clark would be a great big brother. He would make sure she brushed teeth, brushed her hair, in bed on time, done all the homework.
Uh,
Anyway, sure.
Granted, she is a bit of a cheeky rascal, so she'll probably end up sneaking out. She does that in the book in the first thing.
He'll teach her how to throw a ball.
Yeah. And she can teach him how to skateboard if Clark doesn't skateboard.
He doesn't. He would love that, though. Yes.
That's I can just imagine Clark like throwing netballs at Moonflower. Like, stay away from her. But
Where they're both on skateboards trying to out netball each other.
beautiful. I want to see it. Best final battle since I don't know what was a big final battle recently. I don't want to say Avengers Endgame because that movie gets hyped up too much. Jeez. And I can't say Star Wars Rise of Skywalker either because I'm sick of talking about Star Wars.
I've never seen a single Star Wars film, I must admit.
You're not missing out on much. You're just a really annoying fan base.
Oh my god.
Do you reckon you could go into like any other genres or different audiences as well? Because like with your style, it's kind of this. It's got that kind of innocence to it that I could see working in middle grade as well.
Yeah, I've when I first started writing, I kind of started out in middle grade fantasy.
Same here.
It was very very fun to write, and I was reading a lot of it at the time, and then I kind of just like kind of switched vision to give young adult contemporary a go, and then I always try and describe it as I found my home there. I found that I could deal with a lot of. When I started writing contemporary, I used to say I only did it when I had a personal issue I wanted to work through, and doing it as therapy, which sounds so bad.
Writing books is basically therapy. I can relate to that.
Much freer. And then I kind of enjoyed the freedom that the prose of contemporary give me, because I felt like I stopped having the broad mind for fantasy, and I found that whenever I tried to write it, it just wasn't working believably enough. So in terms of kind of looking at another genre, I'm not sure I could at the moment. I would love to, maybe like do an Adam Silvera or something.
I mean, I could see like sports working into fantasy pretty well. Like there was some show I used to watch that was like a football thing, but it was set in outer space, and it was kind of nuts.
I feel like I recognize the concept.
Is it? I think it was called like Galactic Football or something. Some old show I used to watch on Jetix.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen that, like in the dusty corners of my memory.
It's literally like fucking Tron meets the Premier League. It's insane. Oh god.
Did you ever watch Space Jam?
No, I didn't. I haven't seen that. I've been told I should see that.
That's a strange film.
Is it one of those so bad it's funny, like The Room kind of films?
I would say so, yeah.
Great. Tommy Wiseau's gonna show up playing basketball. Oh, can we cast Tommy Wiseau as the dad in Offside Life? Because that would be hilarious.
Yes. Oh my god. Yes.
And oh yeah, this was the final question I wanted to ask. I always like to leave a silly one for the final thing. Was choosing the name Clark, was that based off Clark Kent? Because you've kind of got the Clark Kent look going on right now.
Yeah, no, it was like I don't know. I think it genuinely was that. I always had Dorian as the love interest, and then I think I was just like sitting in front of TV once, and it may have been when Batman vs Superman came out that I first had the inklings of this book, because I was like planning for ages, and then only wrote it last year. So yeah, that's like the origin of Clark Kent, and then I just played around with some surnames.
Yeah, Jane could be like the Lois Lane. Holy shit, their names rhyme. Fucking hell.
Jane was, oh my god, yes, yeah, she would be, yeah.
And I remember there was some dick on the netball field. He could be Lex Luthor.
Oh god, yeah, Garrett. He's just a transphobic asshole.
Yep, yeah. Fuck him. God. You know what's funny is that I'm always saying how similar we are. Moonflower has Superman references in it too. There is a point where Millie remembers when she was little, she used to wrap a red towel around her neck and run around the house humming the Superman theme.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, because it's set in the 80s. That's the only superhero movie she would have seen.
Really? Oh, I didn't know it was set in the 80s.
Yeah, it's set in 1985.
I love the 80s.
Yeah, it's got that kind of. I wanted to recreate the vibe of like Back to the Future and all those movies that I love.
Incredible. Every day you get me more excited to finish the book I'm reading than Star Wars.
Yeah, maybe you could think of Millie as like a little Marty McFly from England,
Yes.
but like way more anxiety ridden. But yeah, I think that'll more or less wrap us up. Is there anything else that you'd like to plug or like say anything about your work that more people would like to know?
Yeah, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead. That's why I asked.
So that's let all my high pitched laughter out. One of my other beta readers for this book kind of raised the whole sexuality point with me because again you've got like that fear with Clark of loving, and then you've got his attraction to Dorian, and then we all know he checks out Dante a little bit in the locker room, but Dante checks everyone out.
Fucking hell, Clark. Yeah.
Clark's just like, hello, I have eyes. And they raise the issue of why doesn't he have this like realization that he likes Jane, and I'm in my head he already knows like he's quite open to just who we like he's open to feeling things, he's just not open to pursuing things. And I think that's another kind of point I do like to make a non-point of, if that makes sense. That, you know, not he doesn't need this big sexuality realization, because that's not what the book's about. It's just more about his attraction realization.
Yeah.
And there's quite a big conversation about that in the book. The whole showdown between Dorian and Clark, where Clark is just kind of saying it's not like a choice between a boy and a girl. It was like, say you like two boys, but the different people, they would give you different things. It's like that's just what it's like. And that felt, although I'm not like bisexual, that felt quite important to write still, and not make a massive thing of, oh, he's choosing this person over that person. And I remember discussing with a critique partner earlier on, am I queer baiting? And they were like, no, I made them read a lot of the book. I ran through a lot of ideas. I was like, I need to not do that, because that is just going to be bad. I need to not do that.
I love how actual queer authors care more about if they're queer baiting than straight people.
I know it's bad to do, and I would have hated the thought that I had added to that. So I was like, I cannot be.
I mean, by default of you being a queer writer, I mean, it's not really queer baiting, but I appreciate that kind of, taking care to make sure that no one is going to be left feeling alienated.
Yeah, definitely, because I kind of wanted to be like the actual story developing, rather than just, there's no point in Jane being added into the mix if he's just going to be a Dorian. When, as a writer and as people who read the book, there is a point to her. In there, she has her own story as well.
Yeah, and she has total Maisie Williams energy, honestly. That's all I was thinking.
Yeah, she does. Yeah.
Like, if anyone's seen those weird indie things that Maisie Williams does outside of Game of Thrones, it's exactly like this character.
I would definitely fan cast it for Jane.
Yeah, I did think of her for Moonflower, but like that's a bit obvious, because like it's basically Arya Stark all over again. Even though she's a complete dork and would probably do well in it, it's just too obvious.
I'll keep that in mind when I read it, and then I'll let you know. I'll probably agree with you.
I ended up fan casting so many actresses as Moonflower. Like I went from Miley Cyrus, Selena Gomez, Dakota Fanning, all these like America's sweetheart kind of actors.
Yeah.
Because it needs to be like someone who as being good. It can't be someone as being an anti-hero or being a villain. That otherwise it won't be as shocking.
You need the role.
It's like when you remember those movies from the 2010s. There's like, I wonder who the villain in this movie is. Is it Jake Gyllenhaal? is it Tobey Maguire or is it Ben Kingsley who plays villains in fucking everything?
Yeah. Yes. I remember that.
Him and Mark Strong were like the 2010s villains.
Yeah, definitely.
What is it with British guys and being bad guys? It's fucking hilarious.
As a British guy, I fully agree. It is.
And even Benedict Cumberbatch did it. Like, pretty much, if you're British and an actor, you're probably going to be cast as a villain at some point.
Yeah. Which is weird because, like, you get an American drama series and a British guy walks in and everyone just, like, falls over their feet because they have that
accent.
Southern, posh, Tory aesthetic, which sucks.
Ugh. Or even worse, it's like an American actor trying to do a British accent and they sound like a fucking YouTuber.
Oh, God, yeah.
Ugh, God. But anyway, I'm not going to rant about YouTubers anymore, seeing as this show is on YouTube. I love all you guys. Yeah, collab with me anytime you want. But that'll more or less wrap us up. So where can people find you, and anything else you want to plug?
Yeah, come watch me ramble on Twitter about books and gay stuff on Twitter at SD Reid Writes.
Alright. And as always, you can find me at NolanDean27 on Twitter, where I'm rambling on about probably the Fantastic Four, because I just got a Fantastic Four comic and I'm thinking of doing a video on the Fantastic Four. It'll probably not happen for a while, but I don't know, I've had some stupid ideas. You can also find me at Nolan Dean on YouTube on this very channel, having more interviews like this, making more weird video essays, and if you're in the Glasgow area, you can also find me on the set of The Batman, looking for Paul Dano as the Riddler and trying to become an extra in Gotham City, because that is what my life is right now. That's anyway, thank you guys so much for joining us, and as always, if you like the show, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys next time. Later.
Bye. Thank you.
Perfect.